Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today where we're going to be talking about optimizing navigation in SharePoint, connecting and organizing your communication sites. We're lucky to have Nina here who will be presenting our content, and I'm Stephanie and I'll be producing the session today. Just a couple housekeeping items to get started. First of all, we do have a Q&A panel. If you have questions throughout the session, feel free to post your questions in there. I'll either try and answer them offline or I'll interject them if appropriate, or we'll answer them immediately after the session. So feel free to post throughout there. We also have a couple sessions Nina's going to be mentioning here that might be good to watch in collaboration with this session. So we'll get those posted as well. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Nina to take us through some quick takes.
Well, thanks, Stephanie, and welcome everybody to Optimizing Navigation in SharePoint today. Just some quick takes on things that we're going to be looking at. And before I go over these, I just wanted to mention that we did do two previous webinars. One was the difference between communication sites and team sites and when it's appropriate to use which one. And the other webinar was about actually creating communication sites. So if you didn't catch those webinars, they kind of follow on to each other, although this is still a standalone session as well. But if you are interested, Stephanie will post those links in the YouTube video description. Today we're going to look at why SharePoint navigation is so important. We're going to go over planning your hub site navigation and setting up the navigation in your admin center. So really the purpose of this session is how we can create a unified navigation experience, some considerations around navigations which are important to look at, and how to actually set it up. And I'll be demoing how to actually do that. Stephanie, I'm just going to shoot it back to you for a second here.
Awesome. Yeah. So before we get into the demonstration, we just want to take 1 minute to tell you about MyTech so that you know who we are and what we do. So MyTech is a business and technology consultant that serves small to medium-sized businesses in right now the current Denver area and the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. We really work with organizations to help them implement a proven IT strategy. That means it's not the only IT strategy out there. We've just found a proven methodology that we know works. And we use that to pair it in alignment with your business goals to help you move to the next level. So ultimately, we're trying to remove the IT challenges. As small business owners, you have a lot of things that come across your plate every day. And if we can remove those IT challenges, you can work to focus on serving your mission and your customers better and be more adaptable to the other things that come up. So ultimately, our clients achieve 4 times more value and productivity from their IT investments with this strategy. So if this is something you're interested in, feel free to raise your hand by typing into the chat or emailing us or going onto our website and reaching out. But that's not ultimately why you're here. So back to Nina to get into the content.
Thanks, Stephanie. Right, so first of all, I want to just look at why SharePoint navigation is so important. And I'm going to illustrate that here with a bit of a visual. For those of you who are familiar with SharePoint and logging into SharePoint, this is generally what you see on the default page. So very messy, very cluttered. And if you're a first-time user, generally what happens, you come into this page and it's completely blank. I don't know if this has happened to some of you. And that's terribly frustrating because how would you know how to even get to a site if you've never been there before? And so it's kind of a bit of a catch-22 situation versus having navigation like this, where we have a home page and we have consistent navigation at the top where we're able to easily link to specific departments, groups, projects, whatever that looks like for your organization. So this makes more sense. It's consistent. So no matter where you are in your SharePoint site, you'll always be able to use the navigation to get where you need to go. So really important why navigation is such a key factor. Some key considerations with SharePoint navigation that I just want to highlight. One is organizing. So what I find works really well is trying to group logical and similar topics together. So for one great example of that is new employee onboarding. This often pulls from different areas of your SharePoint sites. It could be finance, it could be HR, but if you have a collection we have a link that links to anywhere that person needs to go, that makes a lot more sense. Labeling, very important to write clear labels that your users will understand. And it's really key here to think of the language, especially if we're thinking of new employees. Are there, there's specific lingo or language that doesn't make sense to us, but doesn't make sense to them? So just something to think about there. Usability, so users' ability to navigate all over your SharePoint site from one end to the other. Is it consistent? Is it easy? And very key here, findability. Findability. Can users quickly find what they need when they need it? Right, so we're going to be digging in today around what is a SharePoint hub site. So a SharePoint hub site really allows you to designate or to label usually an existing site and usually a communication site as your home page of sorts. And from that home page, you can then connect to other SharePoint sites, for example, marketing, HR, training, finance, whatever that looks like for you. So again, we're using an existing site. In our previous webinar, we created this My Clinic homepage, and we're going to actually be using that in the example today. So we're going to designate that as our hub site, and then we're going to connect it to various other communication sites. So what are some of the advantages here? The hub site connects multiple SharePoint sites under one umbrella, as you can see at the top there. It also applies common navigation, branding, and site structure. One example here is if you've decided on a specific theme color for your site, it will be consistent throughout all the sites that are associated with that hub site. It aggregates content and news from associated sites. So you could have a news web part on your main page that is pulling news from various other sites across your SharePoint intranet. And it also promotes searching across all the different sites. So a lot of good advantages there. For those of you who have been in my webinars before, you know planning is a really key factor in anything SharePoint related. For today's example, we're going to keep it kind of basic. The My Clinic homepage that we created in the previous webinar, that's going to be our homepage or our main hub site page. And then we're going to connect it up to marketing, and we're going to connect it up to HR. So there are two important steps here when we're doing this. First of all, we need to register that homepage as a hub site. And the second step here is that we need to associate or connect our sites to that hub. One key thing that I want to note here is that you do need SharePoint administrator or global administrator privileges or rights. If you do not have that, I would recommend doing the planning, figuring out how you want this to be set up, and then working closely with your SharePoint administrator to make it happen. One thing that I wanted to note here that it's very important to elicit feedback from your users. I would generally recommend creating a focus group and have them kind of test out the navigation and see if it's intuitive. In my experience, sometimes I've set up navigation that makes sense to me, but it doesn't necessarily always make 100% sense to users. So very important to test that out. And I would also test it out with different users and different groups. So you make sure that people from a specific department like marketing or HR, whatever that is, have access to what they need to have access to and, excuse me, and are not able to access things that they shouldn't be accessing. And then make changes as necessary. So I'm going to stop the PowerPoint here for a second, and I'm going to pull in the demo environment. I'll just ask you to bear with me today. Sometimes the demo environment does some interesting things, especially when it comes to hub sites, and sometimes it takes a while to synchronize. So we'll see how it goes today. So I'm going to just show you the 3 sites that I mentioned in the PowerPoint. The first one is the My Demo Clinic homepage, which we created in the previous webinar around creating communication sites. We also have a marketing site, and we also have an HR site. So the way that you go about it is log into office.com, which is usually where you get to this page. Go up here to the top left-hand corner, hit that waffle, and we're looking here for our admin. All right, this takes us into the 365 Admin Center. I have to go here to the breadcrumbs, hit show all. And you'll see over top, bottom left here, we have the SharePoint Admin Center. So I'm going to just go ahead and click that. All right. So if I go onto the left here and I look at my active sites, here are all the sites across my 365 tenant. I'm going to go ahead and look for the site that we created the last time, which is this one over here, the My Demo Clinic homepage. I'm going to hit that checkbox over there. And if you see to the top here, there's an option called Hub. I'm going to hit that drop down, and remember what we looked at in the PowerPoint, the first step is to go and register it as a hub site. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Right, my hub name, I'm going to call it My Demo Clinic. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And this is what I meant earlier. Sometimes it takes a while for this to happen. I'm going to try and get ahead of it by refreshing here. And let's see. All right. So step 2 was to go and associate the marketing site and the HR site to this Demo Clinic homepage. So I'm going to go ahead, hit that checkbox there, hit the drop down here under Hub, and say associate with a hub. Now, if we're lucky, it'll show up here. Ah, thank goodness. Sometimes it does take a while to synchronize. Here's the My Demo Clinic option over here, and I'm going to hit save. So I've now associated the marketing site with the Demo Clinic homepage, and I want to go and do the same thing here with the HR page. So hit the check mark, drop down here under Hub, associate with a hub, choose My Demo Clinic as my main hub, and hit save. So it's going to think about it a little while here. Now, the next step that we need to do is if we go over here to the My Demo Clinic homepage, when I hit the refresh button, you'll notice I now have the option to add links. So this is where I'll actually now go ahead and build out my navigation. So I'm going to click here on add link. This edit menu pops up here, and this plus here allows me to go and add in different links that I need. So before I do that, I'm just going to head over to the marketing page. I'm going to right click here, copy, because I'm going to need that URL soon. Go back here to my home page. All right. So we're going to go ahead and click associated hubs because we want to say that in our navigation, we're going to be linking up to our associated hubs. I'm going to call this marketing and hit OK. All right. Now the next one is I want to actually link up to my marketing homepage, which is the link that I grabbed there. So I'm going to go ahead, hit that plus. You'll see there's different options. I could just do a label if I wanted. If I wanted to start a new category, I'm going to go and choose link. This is the URL that I grabbed, and I'm going to call this marketing home and OK. Now what I want to do is I want this home to be a sub-link under marketing. So I hit the breadcrumbs over here and say make a sub-link. It's always good to go save and kind of just see what it's doing and if it's doing what we want it to do. And in this case, yes, it is. It's created this drop-down box here, and I'm able to go to the marketing homepage. I'm now going to build out some additional links. So I have marketing resources. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. I want people to be able to get into various marketing resources, newsletters, etc. I'm going to go up here to the URL, right click, copy, go back to my home page, and let's go build out a sublink there. So I'm going to hit edit again. So I'm going to do this a couple of times. I think it'll make more sense once you see it a few times. I'm going to hit the plus over here. We want a link, paste in the address, and we're going to call it marketing resources. And then I'm going to make this a sublink. Click save. Yep, there we go. And I can go ahead, go back to my marketing page, build out various other links that I want there. And that's why, again, the planning piece of this is really important. Let's do the same for HR. So I'm going to go here to edit. I'm going to add, before we do, let's go and go grab that URL, right click, copy. And we're going to say we want to associate it with the HR hub. We're going to call it human resources. Click on OK. Now you'll notice that it's now a sub-link under marketing. I'll quickly just save you so you can see what that looks like. And that's not what we want. So we have to go back in there and say promote sublink and save so that it's its own section basically. So I'm going to go hit edit. And under human resources, I want to create a sublink that's going to go to the home page. So let's pop that in there. HR home. Click on OK. And make it a sublink. There we go. Same thing here. I could go in here to HR. I could, well, let's just add this one just for fun. We want to create a link to policies and procedures for HR. So I'm going to highlight that, copy, go back here to my edit menu. And we'll call this HR, policies and procedure. Probably help if I spell it correctly. And I'm going to make that a sublink and save. All right, so that's how we're kind of building that out. Now, one question I get very often is, let's say, for example, we want to put in a link here to the marketing team site. In other words, if you looked at our videos on the difference between communication sites and team sites, the marketing team site will only allow people from the marketing team to be able to access that information. So if we built in a link here and you're not in the marketing team and you click on it, you're going to get a message saying access denied. So what we want to do is we want to essentially hide links on our navigation that is not relevant to somebody in a specific department. So I do actually have a marketing team site. So this is for the marketing team only. I don't want anybody else to go onto this team site except for people from the marketing team. So I'm going to go ahead, right click there, copy, and let's go build that in under marketing. Marketing team sites. And I'll make all right, so I don't want anybody from outside the marketing team to even see this link. So if you go in here to edit, you'll notice that there's an option in the bottom left-hand corner here, and by default, it's usually off. So we're going to enable it, and this is called audience targeting. And this allows us to target a specific link to a specific group only. So I'm going to go here to the marketing team site. I'm going to go to edit. And you'll see that there's a separate option here for audiences to target. So I have a marketing team already set up, and I'm going to just say here, marketing team members only. Okay, and you'll notice as soon as I do that, it creates this icon to show that it's audience targeted. I wanted to show you what that kind of looks like, but because the hub sites take a while to sync, we'd probably be here for a while. So I'm just going to explain when you're not in the marketing team, and I'm going to click save, and you click that drop down there or select the drop down, you won't actually see the marketing team site link. So that's really how audience targeting works, and you could use that across your navigation. There's one more thing that I wanted to demo, and that is how do I actually set this up as a home page for my entire SharePoint site? So in other words, if I hit this home page button here, I want to be able to go to this My Demo Clinic homepage. And again, this is something that we need to do in the admin center. So I'm going to just head back there. And on the left-hand side, we have a settings option here. And you'll notice over here is a home site option, which in the description sets the main landing site for your intranet. So if I go ahead, select that, you can see that I've set up my test clinic. So when somebody hits that home page button, it'll go to this particular page. And I think that just makes it easier than seeing frequent sites or some of the messy default pages that I demonstrated earlier in the PowerPoint. All right, so that's the demo. I'm just going to head back to the PowerPoint one more time. Yeah, so just in summary, really important to take the time to plan. Navigation might seem kind of easy on the face of it, but it can get complex really quickly. So I would definitely get different groups and users from within my organization to give me feedback. A focus group is great for that. And definitely test, because in my experience, sometimes things don't act or react the way you think they will. You think in your head that maybe you've set it up in a certain way, but there might be variables that come into play that kind of mess that up for you. So important to test it and to change where necessary. And that's all from me today. Back to you, Stephanie.
Awesome. Thanks, Nina. Yeah, if you could just go, there we go. Perfect. Next slide there. Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. We're going to open it up for Q&A here in a minute. But before we do that, just wanted to let you know that, to keep an eye on our mytech.com/events for any future events that we have. For instance, next month, we're going to be talking about team sprawl, which I feel like we've all experienced over the last couple of years, and maybe have some quick tips on how to clean that up or get started on that. So all of our events are posted there. Feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like and follow us on LinkedIn as well. We do post all of this content there for you to view after and share with other coworkers or others. Yeah, share these events with whoever you think could benefit. And then lastly, we do have a power user group. So some of the stuff that Nina was going through today kind of goes into the back end, like she was talking about having an admin credential. So seeing kind of how that works. Our power user groups that are every other month definitely go a little bit deeper into that back end, like she was showing you, so that you could see kind of the possibilities. So we encourage you to attend those as well. And that could be found at mytech.com/power-user-group, along with all of our previous sessions. So thanks again for joining us today. Like I said, we're going to open it up for questions, but for those of you that have to drop off, thanks again. So go ahead and post any questions that you have in the Q&A. Nina, I did have one question as you were going through that, so I hope I can start by asking a question. Sure. When you were talking about the permissioning or audience targeting, I think is the, you said that, for instance, you had a group marketing set up. Can you kind of talk about that? Is that a separate group, or does that go along with your team's groups, or can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, that's actually pulling from your Azure Active Directory. So as your permissions are currently set up for you in your organization for who's able to see what in finance, who's able to see what in marketing. So very, very similar to how permissions used to be set up in a kind of on-premise server environment. I'm just kind of pulling out of those existing permissions.
Awesome. So it's not another group that you have to create.
No. And I mean, you could do it on an individual level. So if I wanted to target a specific user, I guess you could completely do that. But I generally, with permissions, try to take a top-down approach, because the more granular you get with your permissions, the more difficult it gets to manage that and maintain it. So if you're getting really, really specific, and maybe 2 of these people and 5 of those people, it can get messy real quick.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I am not seeing any questions in the Q&A panel. So we'll go ahead and sign. I know. But, so we'll go ahead and sign off. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. And as always, just reach out if you have any questions.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks. Bye.